In this video, we will look at an area of the software called the component tree, shown to the left of the screen in the Modeling tab in vcarve and Aspire. This is a very important area of the software if you plan to work with 3D components, as it will allow you to control and organize them and dictates exactly what you will see in the 3D view. We call this result the composite model and will be used to calculate any 3D toolpaths. The component tree in vcarve and Aspire are almost the same. We will start out in vcarve, and towards the end of this video, we will look at the options that are unique to Aspire, so you have everything that you need to know about the component tree in both software packages. As I mentioned, we're going to start this demonstration off in vcarve and then move on to Aspire later to show you the differences in the component tree. So for this demonstration, or at least the start of this demonstration, we're going to open an existing file. And inside of your tutorials file, you'll see an example called Apple Example. Let's select that and open this up. Now, as always, when we open up our software, we're going to be taken directly to our Drawing tab to start with. But in this case, we want to have a look at our Modeling tab. So let's left click on that. At the top of your Modeling tab, you're going to see the modeling tools that are available for you in vcarve. Now, this is a subset of what you will receive in Aspire, and I'll point out the differences when we get to Aspire in a minute. And below that is your actual component tree. Currently, it's populated with 2 different components and has 1 level. If you take a look in our 2D view, you'll see that we have 2 grayscale representations of our actual 3D content. And if we tile our view so we can see both the 2D and the 3D view, you'll see that in the 3D view, we have the composite model that is made up of what is being calculated in the component tree. So currently right now we have 2 different components. We have an Apple component that's sitting proud of the panel component. Let's look back straight down that again. The component tree is a very important part of our software if you plan on using 3D objects in your job. It helps you to control and organize them and dictates exactly what you're going to see in your 3D view. And what you see in your 3D view is what the software will use to base any 3D toolpaths on when it comes to calculating them. When your software creates a brand new job, it will automatically by default create you a level 1 without any content on that level. It's up to you to populate that with what you'd like, but in this case, I've already pre-populated it with those 2 components that you see here. Now we can go ahead and select our components inside the component tree by left-clicking on them, and you'll see that in the 3D view, the selected component is turned to be red. And in the 2D view, the bitmap representation for that is pulled to the front of your stack so that you can easily tell what you've actually selected. In some cases, the bitmap representation of the content that you've clicked on will be hidden behind something. So this is a great way for us to be able to pull that to the front temporarily so you can see what you actually have selected. Now, if I choose the apple, you'll see the same thing, that in the 3D view, the apple is now colored red. In the 2D view, it has been pulled to the front and now it's selected there. Now you'll see that we have some checkboxes here. You can go ahead and hide and show levels and content by selectively turning on and off or hiding and showing different components or levels. So if I wanted to, let's say, hide the apple, I can go ahead and uncheck that. I can recheck it again and turn it back on again. And the same thing with the panel, the same thing with the level. And if I want to show and hide the whole component tree, I can go ahead and do that by just clicking that checkbox there. Now also, if I want to rename any of this stuff, I can just slow left click on the level or the component twice, and I can type in a new name for that level or component if I would like to. It's a great way of keeping everything all organized so you know what's going on, especially if you have a very complicated job. Now also, you'll see that there's some icons at the front or the lead of each of the text elements here for these components or levels, and these will tell you what combine mode these are set for. So if I hover over top of the panel, the combine mode is set to merge, the base height is 0, and the total thickness is 0.3457 of an inch. If I hover over the apple, you'll see the combine mode is set to add, and that's reflected in the difference in the icons here at the front, and also the base height is set to 0, and the total height of this component is 0.2474 inches. I can hover over top of my level as well, and you'll see that it has its own mode, and that combine mode is set to add with a base height of 0. So levels and components also have right-click menus available to them to give you access to some other options of the component tree. If I hover over top a level and I right-click on that, you'll see that we're given access to all kinds of different features here. We can change the combine mode from add to subtract to merge to low to multiply. We can show this, show only this, show all but this, or show all of the levels. We can hide this level. We can hide all levels. We can select all the components that are on this particular level. I have also access to the level effects. So there's level clipping. There's mirror mode. I can insert a new level. I can delete a level. In this case, deleting a level has been grayed out because there's only one level and every job requires one level. Now, if this was a different level and I wanted to delete it, I'd have to remove all of the content from that level first, and then I'll have access to delete that level. I could also just go ahead and select that level and press delete on my keyboard once it was empty. And then I can rename this level. If I hover over top of the Apple component and I right click on that, I can also change its combine mode. I can move the grayscale representation up or down through the stack of bitmaps in the 2D view. This is a semi-permanent way of rearranging those bitmaps in case one is hidden that you need to see, but this does not affect the actual composite model in any way. I can go ahead and copy this component and I can paste it in a new instance of our software. I can duplicate this component, and if I do that, we'll see what happens in our component tree. I can also delete this component by just having it selected and press delete on my keyboard. I can also duplicate it by selecting this component, holding down my left mouse button with my control key down and dragging, and then I can go ahead and duplicate that component again. Let's delete that just by pressing the delete key. Just right click. I can rename that as well from here. I can show this component, show only this component, show all but this component, or show all components. I can hide this component or hide all components. I also get access to my properties for this component, and they can also be accessed through the spanner from the 3D modeling tools. And I can move it to a specific level, or I can create a new level from here if I would like. As you saw earlier, in the right-click menu of our components, we have access to our properties for that component. This can also be accessed through the spanner icon here in your 3D modeling tools. With that selected, I can go ahead and choose the spanner, and you'll see that here are all of my component properties, and I can close that down. Now, this is also available for levels. If I choose my level, I can go up here and I can click on the spanner. And you'll see that I have access to changing my combine mode of the level, but also I can go ahead and add a base height to this level. This is a really handy feature if you want everything on a certain level to start at a certain base height. You can use this option. And that base height will be reflected when you hover over top of this level under where it says base Z, and currently it's set to 0. Our current composite model has the apple being added to the panel. But now what would happen if we wanted to add in a third component? Keep in mind this is vcarve, and we can only use pre-created components or clip art. If this was Aspire, then we could use our modeling tools to create some brand new components if we would like to from scratch for almost any need. For now, let's just go have a look at our clip art tab. Now, I've already pre-installed all the clip art that comes free with our vcarve software. And in ribbons and banners, you'll see there's a ribbon number 4. I can just double click on that, and the software will import that 3D content right into the center of my job space. And by default in vcarve, it's set to a merge component. Also, you may note that in our 2D view, our transform handles are available to start transforming this component right away. And that's also reflected in the 3D view, except for our component is a green silhouette of the model. If we have a look at our modeling tab, you'll see that the ribbon number 4 has been added to the top of our stack of components. and it's been set to a merge component like I had mentioned. Now, because it's being merged into the result of the apple being added to the panel, it's actually hid inside of this composite model, and that's why it's green. If I go ahead and hold down my Shift key and grab that corner transform handle, I can size this up and I can drag it down so that it peeks out of the bottom of my layout. And you'll see now in the 3D view, because this component is selected, it's actually colored red, but where the model actually intersects with the other components and is buried inside of it or merged into it, it is actually turned green so that we know and we can see where that component stops and ends. If I would like to now, I can go ahead and right click on the ribbon and go down to Properties, and I can change my base height so that it actually peeks up through the composite model where I'd like it to be. I can close that down. Click anywhere here to deselect that, and I can now have a look around my composite model to make sure it's exactly what I'd like to have. So now what we have in our component tree is the ribbon being merged into the result of the apple being added to the panel. If I'd like to, I can go ahead and select the ribbon and I can hide it, I can show it, I can right click and I can delete it, or I can simply, with that component selected, press delete on my keyboard. Now let's have a look at a more complicated composite model and component tree. Let's start off with a new instance of vcarve and open an existing file. Navigate over to your tutorials folder and you'll find Crest Example. Let's select that and click open. Now right away, like I mentioned before, we're going to be looking at our drawing tab. So let's look at our modeling tab. And then let's go ahead and tile our views from left to right. As you can see over on our component tree, we have multiple levels now set up, and level 2 and level 3 have multiple components on them. If we have a look in our 2D view, you'll see that we are presented with the bitmap representations of all of the components that we can see. And then also in the 3D view, we have the composite model that's made up of everything that was turned on in our component tree to reveal this lovely coat of arms. Let's look straight back down on that again. Let's go ahead now and turn off all of the levels and then just turn on level 1. You can see that on level 1, it's an add level, and on that we have a merged shield. And because the shield is all by itself, it really isn't merged into anything. This could actually be an add component if we wanted it to be. Let's turn that off. Let's turn on level number 2. In level number 2, you'll see that we have 5 different components. They're all merged into each other. So if I right click on the 3 feathers and go down to show only this, in our composite model, we'll just see the feathers. And then we can merge into those feathers the crown. And because the crown is proud of the feathers, you'll see that the feathers look like they're coming in from behind it, but yet they're merged into the crown. In the same respect, if I turn on this fleur-de-lis, it is actually higher than the crown. So when it merges in, it'll actually poke up through the crown to give us the result that we would like. And that's the same as adding in these 2 small fleur-de-lis. So let's hide that level. And let's go ahead and show this level. And let's only show the banner. Show only this. Now this banner is a nice looking banner, but one of the neat features of it is it's very proud on the front here. It's very high on the front. So we can easily merge in these 2 flourishes. And because they're lower than the actual banner, they look as if they're tucked in behind. And that looks really neat. So I turn that back on again. Now, much like the components within a level, the bottom level, if I turn that on, then turn on level number 2. In this case, level number 2, the result of all of these merged components will be added to the top of whatever's happening in this level. And equally, when I turn on level number 3, which happens to be a merge level, that it will merge in the results of whatever's happening in this level. Now there could be an add component and a subtract component in there. It doesn't matter. It'll just take the result of all that and merge it into the result of level 2 being added to level 1. And that's why we get the composite model like you see here in the 3D view. Now next, we can also go ahead and we can drag components within a level. We can drag components out of a level into a different level. We can drag levels around, and that of course will affect our composite model. As you can see now, instead of the fleur-de-lis being actually added to the shield and then the ribbon layer being merged in, we actually have the flourishes and banners being merged into level 1, and then we have the crown and feathers being added on top of that, because that level is an add level. And to correct that, I can just drag up. So not only is it important to have the right combine modes set up within your level, but you're also going to want to do the same with your levels and have them in the proper order to give you the result that you would like to have in your 3D view. We've purposely skipped over the little minus sign in front of the levels, and that's there to help you minimize your level in case you get a very large set of components or a very long component tree. You need to shorten it up to help you see things a bit better. So you can just click the minus key, and if it'll convert it to a plus, and you see it shorten things up, and then you can go ahead and press the plus key to expand that down again. Also, in your component tree, it's always really important to keep your levels named properly so that when you do have them all minimized, you actually know what's on each level. We'll open those all back up again so we can see them. One last thing we should cover is grouping components. Now we have the option inside of our component tree to select a few components or a select number of components and group them together so that any transform options you make to that group will apply to everything within inside that group. So for instance, if I wanted to group up all of the stuff that's on this level 2 so that I can manipulate it all at the same time, I can hold down my shift key with the bottom thing selected, click on the top fleur-de-lis, right click and go to group. And you see that now I have a group of components that are sitting inside of level number 2 that I also can use the minus and plus to expand and compress the list, and I know exactly what that is. So as you can see, if I just select this one group, all of those components get selected in the 3D view. And again, any transforms that I make to that will happen to all of those components. I can right click on that and I can ungroup that and put it back to the way that it was. Now that covers all of the options in the component tree in vcarve. Let's have a look at the extra options that you get with Aspire. Now here we have Aspire with that same Crest example opened up into it. If we go ahead and tile our views from left to right, you'll see that we have in the 3D view the same composite model that you saw in vcarve. Let's look back down on top of that again. And if we have a look at our modeling tab, you're going to see some of the first big differences. First of all, you've got a much broader array of modeling tools at your disposal. This helps you to create your own custom components from vectors, from shapes, and from sculpting different things together, along with tons of other great options. Below that, you'll see the same component tree laid out exactly like what you saw in vcarve, but there are a few extra things that you can do with this. First of all, you can export out your levels, your groups, or your components into 2 new file formats. If we select this component and we right click on it, you'll see that we can export as a 3D clip file, or we can save it as a sculpting brush. Let's start with the sculpting brushes. You can save out any of your components as sculpting brushes so that you can use them in the sculpting tool. Just something to remember, that's how you actually do it, is use this feature to get a custom sculpting brush. Now, as for exporting as a 3D clip, this is a very powerful tool as well, because you can save off your single component, your group of components, or your levels so that you can import them into a new instance of Aspire. Now, when you export out a group of components, they'll come into a new instance of Aspire as a group, and then you can ungroup it if you'd like. If you choose to export out a level, then when you bring that into a new instance of Aspire, then it will actually come in as a group, and you'll need to ungroup it and move it to where you'd like it to be. Those are both very powerful features for being able to move your different custom layouts around between different sessions of Aspire, or creating your own custom clip art library. And with that, that ends the component tree guide for both vcarve and Aspire.